Yo, what up, basketball world? We are back for the Just a Minute show. As always, I'm Austin Smith, and I'm joined with my partner in crime, my brother, Mr. Justin Young, who is the editor-in-chief here at HoopSeen, and we are back for this week's episode. It seems like 2022 is off to a pretty good start. JY, how are things for you on the West Coast so far?
Yeah, man, no complaints. You're right. It's flying by. There's some high-level ball being played wherever you can find it. I know the schedule's been a little difficult to kind of navigate through it all, but if you can find a game, you got to go to it. And luckily, we've been having some pretty good matchups that we'll talk about on the show today.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, let's get the ball rolling. We'll get started with some commitments of the week. Well, really one in particular that's kind of notable, you can say across the country and even here in the hometown of Atlanta. But let's talk about Caden Carlisle and his commitment to Stanford. I mean, a huge pickup, a guy who can score the ball at ease. What do you like about Caden, JY? And then what value do you think he brings to the Stanford campus?
Well, I think if you've watched Milton play or if you've seen Caden Carlisle play at all over his high school career, you know that guy's a shot maker. And he's a guy that I think you put the ball in his hands and you say, go get a bucket, young fella. And I think he's one of those guys that can do it. I think he is primed for that kind of life. I think his confidence is sky high. I think his shot making ability is an absolute weapon. And I think when you look at the Pac-12, you've got to have some guys based on the recruiting classes that are coming in. We see what UCLA is doing with Milt Cronin. We see what Arizona is doing down there with the new regime going on down there. And so you look at the league and how it's starting to kind of going back to its roots, right? And while Stanford, no strangers to having star power. Obviously, Zaire Williams played a one and done with them. I think you look at Caden Carlisle, you got an all Pac-12 level player and a potential All-American kind of guy because he's going to have opportunity to shoot the ball. And I think that's what Caden Carlisle brings to the table. And man, I don't want to overstate it too much, but obviously a significant commitment for the Cardinal and really just goes to show that Caden Carlisle wants to do his own thing, which we've seen so many guys from Georgia do over the course of time. They kind of go do their own route. But for Georgia perspective, man, we don't see too many guys leaving the South very often.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so for him to go all the way out there, I love it. And I'm really excited for him because what an opportunity to go to Stanford.
Yeah, and JY, off the top, Stanford is one of the best academic schools around. So, I mean, he's going to get a good education during his duration of time there. But like you said, man, the Milton product, the TSF product, we've been fortunate to see his game blossom and see him play at an elite level over the years. And Stanford is getting a bucket getter, a guy that can definitely fill it up. So we'll be looking forward to seeing Cannon in the years to come. Congrats to you, my man, from the HoopSeen.
You know, what's funny about him, as I remember, I'm trying to remember what year it was. Cannon was like in 7th or 8th grade, and we had an event. It was a tip-off event, and his uncle, who I've known for a really long time, just from coaching travel ball and just being in Atlanta, he goes, this kid's going to be next, right? And if you know me, you know I kind of dismiss those kind of conversations, not to be dismissive of it in a negative way. I'm just like, man, there's a lot of runway. There's a lot of runway. Yeah. And I always thought about that every time I saw Cannon play, and every time I saw him, he got better. And so kudos to their family and really just staying the course and helping Cannon be in a position where he did live up to that high, lofty expectation about being next and being a guy that we want to get to know. And it's really fun to see those stories play out. And again, to your point, going to Stanford, what a gift. Yeah,
man, no doubt. Jay, I'm going to give you another funny story here. I remember this might have been 2 or 3 years ago, watching Cannon play at the, I think it was the NBA or games during the summer in 8th grade on ESPN. It was a random summer about 3
yeah.
And it's like, yo, he's still at that high level, man, which is kudos to the development that he's been a part of. So he's been up there for a good little minute, man. He has been.
No question.
Yeah. So over the past few days, I believe last weekend to the weekend as well, we've had some high-level high school basketball with the NIBC. I've been watching some games on ESPN, JY. I love seeing these high-level basketball games. And again, another situation for us to see apples to apples. Talk to us briefly about the NIBC and what went down at La Lumiere.
Yeah, sure. So the NIBC, to give a little background, is an 18 league that has been put together, which really features a lot of the top prep schools in the country, or not even prep schools, but like the basketball factories there are. The Montverdes, the IMGs, the Sunrise, Legacies, Bishop Walsh, LaLu, Wasatch Academy, Oak Hill Academy. Is that everybody? I think I got everybody that's in there. A round robin league. I went out to it last year in Virginia. They pivoted and moved to Indiana, to LaLu High School. And it was all over TV if you had a chance to watch it. I know for a lot of people that were probably sick this past week, probably that was their they got the scratch, was to stay at home and watch that online or on ESPN. So, but there were some high level players. I think a lot of the games were a lot of blowouts actually, but we saw some things and we learned some good stuff along the way.
Right. So overall, on television, what do we learn? Like, what do we take away from this event, team-wise, player-wise, your perspective?
Yeah, so Sunrise Christian is who we kind of always thought they were. They're an elite level team with elite level coaching and a program that I think when you look at the country, okay, obviously we talk about AZ Compass Prep. I still think they're the number one team in the country. I still think they're the toughest team to beat. I would love to see Sunrise Christian play them. And I think we're going to have two high level coaches, two high level teams, two high level depth programs, but ultimately I think what we're going to see in that type of game is what we saw over the weekend, and that is Kansas commitment Grady Dick being an absolute flamethrower. What'd you think about him? Did you watch him?
Listen, he's off the chain. Here's a cool story for you. So I'm actually good friends with Luke Barnwell. He's a buddy of mine. And so, I've always been following along to see who Luke asked to the roster, and Grady Dick was a guy like, okay, let's see how good this kid is. Man, I knew he could shoot it, but he can really shoot it. You know what I mean? I don't want to be cliche, but what a performance over the past few days, bro. I mean, sheesh.
I think he's one of those kids that when he's at Kansas, he's going to be a difference maker between playing not just the first weekend of the tournament, the second weekend, but all the way to the very end. Like his shot making ability and the way that they're going to play at Kansas, they're certainly going to have some guys that are be huge. That can set some big ball screens up top, let Grady Dick get open on the perimeter. I think Grady Dick is a guy that will always be a shot maker. And I think he'll be a guy that we watch shoot threes for the next 15 to 20 years, honestly, at the pro level. I think he's an elite level guy. In fact, I even tweeted out, like, they're going to have a major segment on the One Shining Moment video from the NCAA tournament. And it's going to be Grady Dick just lighting up the nets on every single game they play. I think he's an absolute difference maker for Sunrise Christian and really one of the true threats in high school basketball as a real specialist.
Right. Yeah, no doubt about it. There's another guy in particular too, JY, who we took a look at. Let's talk about Scotty Middleton. His stock obviously went up. Where do you see him providing a lot of value?
Bro, I mean, I'm sitting there the whole time and I'm like, yo, this guy's a 5-star player.
Yeah.
Like he's a top 25 looking level guy. I mean, that was my takeaway. Right. Like he was involved on so many things, like offensively as a slasher, but defensively, he's an absolute problem. He's really long. He's really active. I thought he set the tone for Sunrise and their energy. I thought he was a mismatch problem. I love the way he gets to the basket. I think he's a guy that's going to be watching his stock rise up. I'm really considering him for a top 25 inclusion. I thought he was the most impressive stock riser I've seen out of the past weekend. I'm going to go back and watch some other film. I've got a whole bunch of film of them that I just need to go back and watch, but he may have been this guy all along, to be quite honest with you. And I think Scotty Middleton, when you look at the 23 class, is really one of those guys that was really good here, but might be like off the screen now because of how much better he got. What did you think? Did you get a chance to see him play?
Yeah, I got to see, like I said, Sunrise briefly for a second, but I like Scotty Middleton as well. It's always interesting to see, like you mentioned the term, well, you said 5-star, but you talk about elite player. And Scotty was a guy that I didn't really know too much of, but when you see him play, it's like, man, this kid, like you said, deserves to be in that conversation with his defensive ability, how he gets stops and all those things. He did a bunch of things that may not get the sexiness category, but they're real value at the collegiate level and is real value right now playing to get some of the best at the high school level as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where you really, like for me, like that's where you learn a lot about who a player is this type of performance at this stage of their career, the middle of their junior year. I think really dictates who they're going to be over the next 3 years. And I think Scotty Middleton is moving himself into that category where, and again, like I think this whole class too, where we're still kind of not complete yet on our full total evaluations of the class. And I think Scotty Middleton, again, he may have been this player all along. I just think maybe more and more people are acknowledging that and really putting him in that category. So, man, I thought he was awesome. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And it does help when you have a guy like Grady Dick who can absolutely light it up, that you got a lot of one-on-one opportunities going from the wing to the rim. So big ups to Scotty Middleton for sure.
Yes, sir, man. Sunrise Christian's got a good duo with Grady Dick and Scotty Middleton, and their success has been proven over the season. They'll probably keep going that way the rest of the season. So good luck to those two guys. Sure. Let's keep going. Let's talk about a familiar face on our HoopSeen platform that's doing this thing now at Montverde. We talked about Dylan Mitchell. Got a chance to see him at Summer with Each One Teach One. Man, J-Wall, what are you liking in the development process of Dylan Mitchell and what you're seeing in his role at Montverde?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think he is an All-American level player. I'll vote for him for the All-American team. So I think what Texas is getting in Dylan Mitchell is a guy that he is so good defensively. He is so good as an energy giver. He is an absolute problem. Really similar in a way that I don't. Let me think about this. I don't know if he's Scotty Barnes. Like that talent isn't A to A. But I do think there's a value what Scotty Barnes brought to the table that you can't really see in the data, right? But when you watch the game, you're like, oh my God, like that's the best player on the floor by a mile. Yeah. And every time I watch Dylan Mitchell play, I think to myself, he is so uniquely talented compared to his peers as a shot blocker, as a guy you can throw lobs to, as a guy that can get out there and guard the perimeter on a switch, or even just he draws the assignment, right? Like Scotty Barnes was the same way, like go guard the point guard. I think Dylan Mitchell has so many transferable skills that I think he's going to the right place with a guy like Chris Beard at Texas. But I really think that when the draft comes around in a couple of years or 2-3 years, however long it takes for Dylan Mitchell to decide to go to the pros, I think he's going to be a player that we talk a lot about on draft night as a real sleeper pick. But I love what Dylan Mitchell is becoming there at Montverde. He made that move over there, stayed in state, went to go play for Kevin Boyle. But to me, he's an All-American guy. I'm going to vote for him. I love what he is, and I love what he's become. And when you watch a game on TV, he looks like a guy that should be playing in college, the way he's so active. Yeah. And he's just such a high flyer, a live wire act that you can't deny what he does, Yeah.
Yeah, without question. You're right on that one, man. Again, it's some of the same things we've seen, had the pleasure of seeing on our HoopSeen platform. One thing in particular, J.R., I love paying attention to, like you talked about with Scotty and now even Dylan Mitchell, but their defensive presence, and then what happens down the line with development, adding more to the offensive arsenal. And you see like guys like Scotty Barnes right now, when he's playing in Toronto with Nick Nurse, and Nick Nurse is adamant about, hey, man, we're going to develop Scotty into a reliable shooter. And so with that process, that'll obviously take time, but you start to get excited because if you can do this on the defensive side, you add some more offensive capabilities and more of offensive skill set, the sky is really the limit. You know what I mean? So,
well, it's funny. I was over at the Suns Heat game the other day, right? And the Heat they killed the Suns. They shot like crazy. I'm watching PJ Tucker, right? PJ Tucker's still playing, and he's on team, always so good. And he actually had a pretty good night offensively, but because that guy can guard so many positions, right, and his value is so interchangeable at the pro level, is that he found a really important niche. And there's been a theme, I think, probably in the since the high school season tipped off. Like, we talk about this a lot. And I was thinking about this as we were talking about Dylan Mitchell. If you guard, think about all the guys we've spotlighted individually. I probably say this all the time. That guy can really guard a lot of positions. Right. And so for me, like maybe that's the thing I'm into right now. I don't know. Like some years I'm really into shooters, or sometimes I'm into like 6'5" point guards. But apparently this year I'm into interchangeable defenders. Yeah. But that's the transferable skill. And you're right. And look at PJ Tucker. That guy's really made himself into a threat. Believe it or not, as a 3-and-D guy. There's a lot of guys in the NBA like that. Mikal Bridges is one of those guys. So you look at those types of guys, and there's some relevancy based on what I was seeing. But yeah, man, Dylan Mitchell, give me that guy. Give me Scotty Middleton all day. A lot of interchangeable guys for sure.
Yes, sir. One last person throwing the table real quick. Let's talk about Judah Mintz of Oak Hill. What did you like about him this past weekend?
Well, I like that he's probably the best scorer available, honestly, in the country. He's had an unbelievable season for Oak Hill Academy. Historically speaking, if Steve Smith has an available senior in his backcourt, he's going to be probably one of the 5 best available guys in the country year in and year out, because the way that they play, he likes to have a guard that can just go out there and get it done. And Judah Mintz, every time I've seen him this year, he's been an absolute problem. He was one time committed to Pittsburgh. I think now Judah Mintz will be a guy that every single program in the country wants to get their hands on. I know a lot of other programs are in there pretty deep prior to him kind of taking another level up in his game, but Judah Mintz has been undeniable this year, the DC area guard. Again, you give me a player from DC, I know I'm probably going to feel pretty good about it. He's had an unbelievable year at Oak Hill Academy, and there's no reason to think that he is going to be a guy that will have his pick of the litter when it all comes down to it. He's been amazing on the offensive end so far this season.
Right about it. Right about it. Well, appreciate that insight as always, Jay Watt, man. Everyone, go ahead and visit hoopscene.com. Plenty of news and updates for you on there. Just check out some of the stories here and storylines from this past weekend. Really good stuff. And the event, the NIBC, continues to get better and better. High-level games, apples to apples, competition at its highest. And you don't want to miss out. So stay tuned throughout the season as the high school season continues with more NIBC action. All right, JY, we're going to do a bonus question for the day, man. And let's, we've been thinking about the Hoop Scene 10-year anniversary. And look, if you're not following Hoop Scene on Twitter at Hoop Scene, you're missing out on some of these guys who are tabbed as some of the best players to ever come play and step foot on the Hoop Scene platform. And a lot of them are getting opportunities right now to participate in the league, man, and having spots, roster spots on rosters because they dominate, man. They play hard and they compete. And we're seeing that theme of winning translate. But real quick, JY, I'm going to go ahead and ask this question to you first, and then I'll kind of give my answer. But at the end of the game, all right, let's think about the past 10 years. At the end of a game, you need a game-winning bucket. Who do you want to take the shot for your team if you're coaching the Justin Young All-Stars? If you can have your choice player, who would it be?
Well, we've had a lot. we've had so many guys that have come through. And, as we put together our Hoop Scene 100, we put out a player a day every day at 10 a.m. I guess it's 10 a.m. Pacific time. So noon every day back east. A lot of dudes, man. A lot of dudes. I don't know. Can I throw it to you? I'm curious. Yeah. I want to hear it you first because I have like 17 guys probably.
All right. So for me, I might be biased because I'm trying to just make sure I'm listing who I've seen play personally with my own eyes in person. But there are two guys off the top of my head. The very first person I just got to go with, man. I got to go with Anthony Edwards. That's just, I feel like in this era, I would be doing him a disservice if we didn't acknowledge the type of player and the absolute bucket that he was. So he's my number one, but I got to like a 1.5, not even a 2, but a 1 and a 1.5. And that player is going to be BJ Boston. Here's why. Okay. I'm sitting at, I think it was at like for Best of the South, I believe. Last game, they're playing EAB. Mind you, it's like not 10 o'clock at night. Like everybody, and BJ puts up 53 points. And I'm talking about effortless. And in my mind, I'm like, man, if you can score effortless like that, and we know BJ Boston's track record during his time in the grassroots era, but absolute bucket getter. One of those two for me.
It was one of what that 53 performance at the Best of South was one of the all-time great games, no doubt about it. In fact, I think our friends at OST 247 have a really cool video on YouTube. I'll find it and tweet it out. Like it's a fun go back to go watch. It's really good. I mean, like I said, man, like we could ask this question, like who can go get you a bucket? I mean, there's so many guys. Let me take it back really. Okay. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say CJ Jackson, who played for Aim High, who went on to junior college.
I went to high. Yeah. Okay.
Level. That guy was an absolute bucket. Our guy, Coach Bird, would draw some stuff up for him, and CJ would absolutely go out there and get a bucket. Wow. Jordan Lyon, who played for Heat Check, who went on to Furman, who I think set the record. You forgive me, I am taking advantage of some Arizona sunshine in January. Outside noise today for the show, but Jordan Lyons, I think he set the NCAA record for most threes in a game, like some like 2K kind of crazy number, like 14 in a game, maybe. Wow. I don't know. I'm sure somebody knows and can correct me, and I'm sure I could probably Google it. But Jordan Lyons, every time he touched the ball, you kind of knew that thing was going to go in. He was one of those cross half court and it's a bucket kind of guy. Honestly, man, I think the biggest shot that I've ever seen at Sewanee Sports Academy in the modern era, not excluding some of the guys that I saw before I came over to Hoop Scene years and years and years ago. And I got Colin Sexton had some games that you're just like,
I feel so bad. I don't forgive.
I know. I thought for sure as a Powder Springs guy.
No, listen, his brother and I played travel ball together for years, man. That's like family. I feel bad now, bro.
So he had a game where the Southern Stampede were playing the Georgia Stars on court 1. Okay. Court 1, if you're going to Sewanee Sports Academy, is on the far left. And we've had some unbelievable epic battles on that court back in the day. And even still today. But Colin Sexton had a game where he hit a corner 3 in the back right corner. It might have been even over Davion Mitchell.
I think it was. It may have been, yeah.
step back three and he hit it. And it was just like one of those like, oh my God, like this is a high school game. Like this is crazy. But Colin Sexton, I think for me, that was probably the biggest shot that I've ever seen at Swanee Sports Academy. But man, there's so many guys. Yeah. We may need to take this question to next week. Like, who's the best shooter that you've ever seen?
Okay.
Right. Like let's extend it. In fact, if you're watching this and if you're liking and subscribing to this video, I would suggest that you drop in the comments down below, as the kids say, like, who's the best scorer that you've ever seen at a HoopSeen event? Like who gets a bucket for you? Drop it down there, put it on Twitter, drop it on Instagram. Cut this up. All right. Let's put this in the IG. All right. And let's put that out there. I do want to see who is the best scorer that you've ever seen on the HoopSeen platform. Put the comments below. We definitely want to know.
Sounds good, bro. Listen, Jay, I just, man, you know, Colin, man, is when you talk about those guys who have that, man, it's a feature on NBA 2K that guys always say it's like a clutch or something like that. But like he's man, he's one of those. He's all time, like, need a basket to win a game, you're in good hands.
It's funny. I've got this photo. It is of, oh man, now I forget who it was. It was Doc Rivers was there to watch his son play, and he's talking to, oh man, now I'm drawing a blank. I'll have to find it and then also share that out. But then in the foreground or in the background is young, froed out Colin Sexton as an 8th grader playing up with the Celtics, right? And I'm like, oh, that's a really cool photo, right? That here you have Doc Rivers, and I felt like it was another NBA guy. I can't remember now, but like again, it's just one of those cool moments when you look back over the last 10 years on where guys have played and who's played, and you didn't realize that they played, you know. So it's pretty cool, man. 10 years, man. 10 years.
That's a long time, man. But a lot of great basketball within those years. I think that's a common denominator too. A lot of great basketball we've been blessed to see here on the HoopSeen stage. So we'll keep those in mind, man. Wow. That's a good question to end this show.
Cut it up, man. Cut it up. Get it out there for the socials.
Gotta do that. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in, man. As always, this is the Just a Minute show. We enjoy having you listeners be a part of what we have here each and every week. JY, any last comments from you, brother?
Yeah, I mean, we're now in the season, right? So really, like, I want to kind of get a shout out to our HoopSeen tip-off. It's right around the corner. We're about 2.5 months away from that action tipping off. We'll be at Swanee Sports Academy. Obviously, they're in Atlanta. Down the road here in Phoenix, we'll be at the new Bell Bank Park at Legacy out here in Mesa. It's something that you're going to want to be a part of on both coasts. For teams, really, like, you got to have, the way that it works now, you've got to have some sort of momentum, and you've got to have some sort of narrative for your team as you're going into the NCAA live period. I'm telling you, not just because it's our events, there's nothing better than the HoopSeen tip-off when it comes to something like that. And as far as getting your narrative out there, our staff does an incredible job of getting that covered and getting your team taken care of with your players. And so we got your photos, we got your videos, we got the tweets, we got the stories, we got all the ammo that you're going to want to have as you're going into the travel season. So go ahead and get registered at hoopseen.com/events for both HoopSeen tip-off events, East Coast and the South and West Coast here in Arizona. So get your program locked up.
Oh, there you have it, coaches. The best way for you to go and get your teams ready for the upcoming season. We look forward to seeing you guys at the 2022 HoopSeen tip-off in both East Coast and West Coast, in Atlanta and in Phoenix. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in on today's episode of Just a Minute. As always, I'm your HoopSeen host, Austin Smith, joined by my partner in crime, Justin Young, who is the editor-in-chief here at HoopSeen. We look forward to seeing you all again next week for the next edition of Just a Minute.